The global mental health situation requires a lot of improvement. We know that the burden of mental disorders is very high. The numbers of people who have mental disorders and other mental health problems is extremely high and is increasing. And the resources that are available to look after the needs of the people are extremely scarce. On an average, governments spend less than 3% of their total health budget on mental health, and this percentage is much smaller in low and middle income countries. In most countries, it is as little as 1%. You cannot look after the needs of the people with mental disorders with that kind of budget. So we need a serious increase in the resources, financial and also human resources, to be able to look after the people who have mental disorders as well as their families, which also require a lot of support. It requires a number of steps. We do need to change the socioeconomic realities and make this world a little more equity based. That will certainly help, but even then there will be people who will have mental disorders, and health and social services need to be strengthened to look after their needs. For example, in most countries, the primary healthcare system, the general doctor, the general nurse, sometimes even the community health worker, is not able to identify and treat even common mental disorders, which is a pity, because that's where most people go, and that is the logical place for these people to identify, for example, depression, anxiety, other common problems, and to be able to provide treatment. And that's not happening because the training, the initial training as well as in-service training for these people is not good enough on mental disorders. So that's something which needs urgent redressal. The second thing which I want to say is that in many countries, the treatment of mental disorders is still institutionally based. You have large mental hospitals which are old style. They serve more the custodial purposes rather than the treatment purposes. That needs to change. WHO's very clear advice is to provide treatment for mental disorders in community-based settings, in primary healthcare centers, in general hospitals, as well as in mental health centers in the community. And that is a very urgent requirement, because mental hospitals are neither good for treatment nor respect the human rights of people, which is extremely important in this case. There is definitely a need for developing knowledge together and using the knowledge together. Neurologists, neuroscientists, even basic neuroscientists need to work much more closely with psychiatrists and other mental health professionals, so that they can understand the needs of people right now and work towards that to find solutions. Solutions that can be applied in every healthcare setting, not only those which are rich, but also those which are poor health settings, where the manpower is small, the facilities and infrastructure are very primitive. We need interventions that can reach everybody in this world, and those interventions can be diagnostic. For example, finding out a quick and economic way to diagnose common mental disorders or severe mental disorders in a short time with high amount of reliability. It is true that most psychiatric diagnoses currently are based on symptoms and signs by an expert interview or by a checklist. We certainly are looking forward to identifying some biomarkers, electromarkers, or other mechanisms which can be used on a population basis with a reliability that is high to diagnose. And there, some of the advances in sciences as well as in electrophysiology can be extremely beneficial. Unfortunately, we keep thinking that it will be next year, but it doesn't come. And we need some very rapid progress on these which can be applied widely. And there, projects like Synapsy, which are putting together a number of professionals from different areas to think through together as to what is the current need and how we can solve those immediate problems working together can be extremely useful. There is a need for working also across the countries and regions. We really need a global effort where people can exchange information and come out with solutions that can be applied on a wider basis. And so that way, Synapsy is a very good example, but it needs to be widened, it needs to be repeated. Sure, Synapsy can be a good example for others, and also it can stimulate further thinking about how to work together across the disciplines and utilize the synergies that are there to come out with real solutions. We need a quantum jump in the knowledge to look after the public health burden of mental disorders, and there working together is the only solution. And also, as soon as you find some solutions, the real need is to scale it up in a quick time and across the world. We would like, WHO would like, some of these solutions to be available at a cost that even poor countries can afford. We need to work towards that, and starting from countries but also then becoming regional and then becoming global is really the objective that we have in our minds. There is certainly need for more research. The question is who should do it and where should the resources come from? This certainly will be a joint exercise between private companies, between governments and philanthropic organizations. And I think here is the need to really work together. We do not expect private companies to invest if the risk-reward ratio does not improve. And there some of the government funding, some of the fundings from philanthropic organizations can actually join hands and work towards a system which can be sustainable, which can have enough rewards for the investors but also for public health. So that's where we are interested, and I think some new models need to be tried to see to it that there are enough resources with a trajectory for solutions that can be sustained and that can be global.